Hey there guys, this is Richard, your host, with another marvelous video. This time, every cancelled Marvel movie that could have been game-changing. Marvel and DC have always stood on top when it comes to superhero origins and actions around them. Even though there are many successful Marvel movies and shows that gain vast popularity and success, there are also several projects that didn't get made. And to be frank, it's not always because of some rejected script or a bad plot. Sometimes the storylines get made into something else, or perhaps unusual delays occur. Regardless of the best scripts and ideas, some films get cancelled, and Marvel had to learn that the hard way. So, in today's video, we'll be exploring all the Marvel masterpieces that could have been game-changing but unfortunately couldn't see the light of day. Without further ado, let's get straight into the details. But before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Spider-Man, Tobey Maguire. Samuel M. Raimi, who's best known for the Spider-Man trilogy, initially introduced Tobey Maguire as the beloved Peter Parker, aka Spider-Man. This movie was a hit with $825 million at the box office. Followed by this, we got our two other favorite sequels, Spider-Man 2, released in 2004, and Spider-Man 3, which was released in 2007. And just when we were expecting Tobey Maguire to play the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man for one more time in the much-anticipated Spider-Man 4, it took a distressful turn. Raimi wanted to make the fourth film that would be the ultimate web-slinger movie, but Sony was rather up for a reboot. But fans waited for years till it just seemed like some distant dream. Raimi's franchise started planning on the fourth sequel with the screenwriter David Koepp before Spider-Man 3 even hit the theaters. In 2009, Sony Pictures announced a theater release date on May 6, 2011 on Twitter. The high hopes began to rise among Marvel fans, but the Spider-Man 4 never saw the light of day. So, what exactly do we know about this movie? Spider-Man 4 would have Vulture as the main villain, and we'd probably get to witness Dr. Connor's transition to the Lizard. It's been reported that several villainous members of the Sinister Six would be in conflict with Tobey's Spider-Man. It already sounds thrilling, doesn't it? Hold your breath, because Bruce Campbell was rumored to be playing Mysterio. The ruthless battle between Vulture and Spidey would really be thrilling and action-packed. The creators revealed that Spidey would cut off the wings of this wicked enemy and save his life. The death of the Vulture would probably result in something new. We could be seeing Adrian Toomes' daughter become Vulturess, who would seek revenge for her father in Spider-Man 5. Jamie Vanderbilt, Gary Ross, and David Lindsay also worked on the script along with Jeffrey Henderson. Jeffrey has given quite a bit of effort during the production days of this unreleased movie, and he confirmed that there were some rough storyboards to work with. If the film was made, Vulture and Mysterio would get in the wall crawler's way. But that's not the end. We'd also get to see Shocker, Rhino, and the Prowler in one of these storylines. What exactly did they want, or was their motive this time? The mystery remains unknown. If Raimi had it his way, we'd get to see these villains in live action. But several issues in the script kept getting it pushed back, and the special effects crew also failed to resolve the problems promptly. The executives of Sony Pictures also made several attempts to resolve the problem, but there was no quick fix to the lingering issues. Even though they decided to delay the release to summer, Sony had to cancel the project and put an end to the Sam Raimi franchise. Sony's ultimate decision was to reboot and freshly start the series. Daredevil 2. Daredevil's story is something that never ceases to amaze people who get to know it. A young man, accidentally blinded by radioactive sludge, loses his eyesight but gains extra sensitivity to his other senses. He developed a radar sense along with superhuman abilities and began learning martial arts under the tutelage of another blind man. Soon enough, he gained the attention of Kingpin and came to be known as the Daredevil that we know of. But why has this character not gotten his sequel movie yet? Let's look into the series of cancelled movies Daredevil has left behind. 2003 saw the big screen debut of Matt Murdock, aka Daredevil, with Ben Affleck playing the titular role. Fox Studio produced this movie, but unfortunately didn't get the film rights to the character forever because Marvel owned the copyright. And the fact that this movie performed mediocrely also didn't help its case. Meanwhile, X-Men and Fantastic Four did a much better job at the box office, causing the studio to put Daredevil on the back burners for a long time. Since Ben Affleck refused to reprise his role, it was time to find a new actor. When Iron Man had a huge success in the theaters, Fox executives felt the need to reboot the original in hopes that it would do well. Looking at how Incredible Hulk and Batman Begins did wonders for their franchises. It wasn't until 2011 that a concrete decision was made to take this sequel off the ground. David Slade, who filmed the Twilight saga Eclipse recently, was chosen to be the director. Looking at his previous work, it was sure that the tone of the movie would be dark and gritty, very fitting for Matt fighting his way to deliver justice to crooks. But it never happened because Slade saw himself out before the production even began, and the idea was seemingly dropped. The time for Marvel to take back the character rights was approaching soon, and Fox had to find a way to keep Daredevil in their roster. It was then that Joe Carnahan proposed an idea for a Daredevil trilogy, which would be a nod to the action thrillers of the 1970s and 80s. He said in 2014 that while Fox just wanted him to direct a finished script, he went above and beyond to suggest a trilogy that would be grimy and dark, and the thematic arcs would be based on the music of that era. Daredevil 73 would be classic rock, Daredevil 79 would be punk rock, and Daredevil 85 would be based on a new wave. But the timing when he proposed this idea wasn't good because the rights were about to lapse, and Marvel didn't want to extend them anymore. Marvel then went on to release its Netflix show Daredevil, which was widely acclaimed and went on for 3 seasons before it was cancelled, even without a proper finale episode. One can only wonder what would have happened if Fox had the right script at the right time, and how it would have rebooted The Man with No Fear. X-Men Origins Magneto. Eric Lenshier, aka Magneto, has been the ultimate archenemy of the X-Men since the very beginning. Being one of the strongest mutants with the ability to manipulate magnetism and shoot electromagnetic pulses, he truly is one of the most complex villains. Ian McKellen and Michael Fassbender have done a fantastic job as the Magneto in the X-Men movies. And to be honest, the X-Men entering the Marvel Cinematic Universe is something we've all seen coming. So, why not an MCU version of the most sympathetic villain? Well, before the origin of Wolverine was explored in the X-Men series, 20th Century Fox actually decided to make Magneto's origin. X-Men Origins Magneto is something that was supposed to be giving details of this infamous character and explore his origin story. It surely tickles the curious cat inside us, doesn't it? Who was Eric Lenshier, and how was his life? X-Men Origins Magneto would probably have the answer to it all. The potential movie even went to the extent of Sheldon Turner deciding to write the script for it, but Magneto's story got drastically altered into X-Men First Class. Eric Lenshier and Charles Xavier's history is explored in this, along with other famous movie scenes. Being a Holocaust survivor, Magneto wanted to liberate mutants from human oppression, which also included Xavier. Unlike other villains, Magneto is wise and logical, whose point is valid at times, so naturally, fans were rather disappointed when the dark theme of the character was left undiscovered. Despite being complex in nature, he often committed heroic deeds in the comics. He's one of those characters who just makes sense, though they're acting as an antagonist. Being a strong villain with diverse intelligence and power, it left MCU with a lot of room to explore his origin. But on the other hand, we also understand that MCA doesn't usually bring dark-themed characters with complex personalities, and when they do, the villains usually have a very short survival time. The film was intended to be a prequel to the X-Men films and was set to explore the origins of the character of this recurring antagonist in the franchise. The film was announced in 2006 and was set to be directed by David S. Goyer, who had previously written the screenplays for the Blade trilogy and Batman Begins. In the end, the character of Magneto was instead portrayed in the X-Men films by actor Ian McKellen, starting with the first film in the series, which was released in 2000. The character has also been portrayed by Michael Fassbender in the prequel films X-Men First Class 2011, X-Men Days of Future Past 2014, and X-Men Apocalypse 2016. The Amazing Spider-Man 3, Andrew Garfield. If the sudden cancellation of the most anticipated The Amazing Spider-Man 3 of Andrew Garfield was shocking to you, you should know that you're not the only one. The one-and-off reboot of the Spider-Man franchise is rather disheartening and confusing to many. So, what really happened here? Well, after Sony Pictures put an end to Spider-Man 4, they rebooted the franchise and thus started The Amazing Spider-Man. With the direction of Mark Webb and Andrew Garfield as Peter Parker, it surely was a bold move by Sony to cut off the Raimi franchise after the huge box office success. But both the movies of Andrew's Spider-Man were super hit as well. Sony was pretty adamant about making Amazing Spider-Man 3 and perhaps a 4, and they even had a potential storyline to follow. Just as in the comics, Gwen Stacy's character would also explore as the Ghost Spider. So, when Paul Giamatti promised the fans that he'd be making an appearance as Rhino again, we all got excited. With a release date of June 10th, 2016, Amazing Spider-Man 3 got the Spidey fans all hyped up. Not just this, Amazing Spider-Man 4 also had a date of May 4th, 2018, 2018 to hit the theaters. Speculations also suggested that Felicity Jones might make an appearance as Felicia Hardy. Mark Webb contributed to the first two hit films. It's only natural for us to expect that he'd return to direct the next as well, right? Well, to everyone's disappointment, all the intriguing ideas were shattered. The next movie was closer in the making than we realized, but Andrew Garfield actually got laid off. Why? Well, he kind of paved the way for the dismissal of Amazing Spider-Man 3. You see, Andrew was supposed to be making an appearance at the Sony Gala after the World Cup 2014 in Brazil. Here, he was supposed to be announced as the star of Amazing Spider-Man 3 by Kaz Hirai. However, Garfield ended up backing off last minute due to not feeling well after a long flight. The announcement ended up getting cancelled, and Hirai's presentation was altered last minute. And yes, some bigwigs of Sony obviously felt the lack of professionalism here, including Hirai himself. So this is how the next two movies got cancelled, and Andrew got fired from the role of Spider-Man. After this incident, Sony and Marvel agreed to introduce the character to MCU, and this led to the current actor Tom Holland entering the universe as Peter Parker / Spider-Man.
Now she'll see.
Hulk 2. When Incredible Hulk came on screen in 2008, it was a pleasant surprise to watch the Green Giant have a human side to his monster persona. Edward Norton did an outstanding job with the role and talked about a sequel that was going on. But it's been over a decade, and there's no Incredible Hulk 2 greenlit by Marvel. So, what happened? There was a lot of reasons that led to the cancellation of the sequel. One, Norton had a vision for his Hulk that was much darker and more serious than what the studio intended. Marvel Studios was pretty much an upcoming film studio back then, and had yet to develop a style of cinematography for their movies. Norton was a co-writer for the first movie because he'd been a huge fan of the Hulk comic since he was a kid and saw tremendous dark anti-hero potential in the character. He wanted to give the movies the same treatment that Christopher Nolan gave to the Dark Knight trilogy. The ending of the first movie was left ambiguous for a reason. Norton and director Louis Leterrier didn't know whether Hulk would be a villain in the upcoming The Avengers movie set to release in 2012. 2. The relationship between Norton and the studio executives soured during the Incredible Hulk shooting. Both of them had a different vision for the character, and about 70 minutes of footage was deleted for the movie to be made. This caused a heated argument between them, and news leaked to the press that Norton might not reprise the role again for the next movie. And in 2010, Marvel announced that they were letting him go due to differences in opinions during the filming of The Avengers. Lastly, Disney purchased Marvel Studios in 2009, while the distribution rights for Hulk stayed with Universal Studios. There was no way that Disney would produce a movie, but would let some other studios rake in the profits. The chances for a Hulk movie series are pretty much non-existent now, with Ruffalo stating that Marvel has no plans for Hulk to go solo in any scenario. Ghost Rider 3. Ghost Rider is a popular superhero series based on the Marvel Comics character of the same name. The first Ghost Rider film was released in 2007, followed by a sequel, Ghost Rider Spirit of Vengeance, in 2011. However, the third film in the series was a tentative title called Ghost Rider Dawn of Darkness, but it was neither produced nor released. There were several reasons why Ghost Rider 3 was eventually cancelled. First, the box office performance of Ghost Rider 2 was disappointing. While the first film Ghost Rider was a commercial success in 2007, according to CGI back then, the sequel struggled at the box office and received mostly negative reviews from critics. This may have played a part in the decision not to continue with the third installment in the series. Another reason for the cancellation of Ghost Rider 3 could be due to the busy schedules of the key staff in the film. Ghost Rider lead actor Nicolas Cage has a busy schedule and may not be able to star in the third movie. It's also true that his career is not exactly taking off again right now, and even if it did, he might not be able to reprise the role. It is a possibility that he might have cameos here and there as the Ghost Rider in other Marvel movies, since Daredevil and Punisher are also speculated to appear in other series. Also, the film's director Neville Dean Taylor doesn't seem interested in returning for a third movie. Without the participation of these key characters, Ghost Rider 3 would be difficult to move forward. Finally, the Marvel Cinematic Universe has evolved significantly since the release of the first two Ghost Rider movies. The MCU is a shared cinematic universe featuring characters and storylines from Marvel Comics, and it's become one of the most successful franchises in cinematic history, along with the DCU. As the MCU has evolved, the focus has shifted from indie films like Ghost Rider to interconnected multi-film storylines. This could make it difficult to develop and produce a third Ghost Rider movie. It would have been really fun though, watching the flaming bonehead act all hysteric and hilarious on the big screen. Punisher 2. Punisher is a story of a vengeful man whose whole family was killed by a mob because they witnessed a killing in New York City. He takes on the role of a crime fighter and becomes the anti-hero of his own story because of the brutal methods he uses to dispose of his victims. Directed by Jonathan Hensleigh, the 2004 Punisher could have delivered what it promised. It was a dark and gritty movie about a man who lost his whole family in one night to some mobsters and has sworn that he'll erase crime altogether. Although it did well with the critics because they liked Thomas Jane as Frank Castle, they were not impressed by the overall tone and acting in the movie. The film raked in about $54.7 million on a budget of $33 million, which isn't bad, but definitely not impressive. The audience loved every minute of it and asked for a sequel to be made, even though it didn't have favorable critic reviews. Despite mediocre performance in theaters, Punisher 2 was green-lit, but production was halted for over 3 years due to the unavailability of a valid script, despite hiring many writers. Even Hensley was moving away from the movie because it wasn't going anywhere and began venturing toward other movies. There were even talks of Marvel execs trying to hire Rob Zombie as the director for the sequel, who had directed movies with visceral violence and brutality before. Soon enough, even Jane walked away from the premise and the sequel was scrapped. 2008 saw another live-action movie, Punisher Warzone, starring Ray Stevenson, but it had such bad reviews that eventually its sequel was also cancelled. Jane did come back as the Punisher in a 2012 short film, Punisher Dirty Laundry, but that was the last he was ever going to appear on screen as the character. With Jon Bernthal's Netflix series Punisher running for 2 seasons before getting cancelled, and Marvel bringing characters from one show into the other for guest appearances, people have hoped that he might do justice to the character more than what others before him have done. Gambit. The X-Men franchise began in 2000 and has been around ever since. And who doesn't know Prof X and his team of powerful mutants who are ready to save the world? But there was supposed to be another member of the team who's there in the comics but fell short of getting a spin-off origin story. Gambit is a mutant superhero in the Marvel Comics universe which was created by writer Chris Claremont and artist Jim Lee. The character, whose real name is Remy LeBeau, first appeared in 1990 and has been a prominent member of the X-Men and other superhero teams over the years. Gambit has the ability to charge objects with kinetic energy, which he can then release on impact, and is known for his proficiency with playing cards and other projectiles. There have been several attempts to adapt Gambit into a feature film over the years, one of which was a project that was announced in 2014 and was set to be directed by Rupert Wyatt. Back in 2016, 20th Century Studios started paying more attention to this character and decided that he was interesting enough to have his own movie. Channing Tatum was cast as Gambit, and he was also a co-writer for the movie. Reed Carolyn was supposed to make her directorial debut with his movie along with Tatum, and they had this vision for the film. But Fox saw this as a problem. They wanted to hire experienced directors to take the movie in the right direction. Thus, the movie was scrapped at the last moment. In later interviews, Tatum opened up about the cancellation and said there were many reasons. First was their inexperience in directing. Second, even though they'd planned and written out the script, the studio felt like this was totally similar to Deadpool, with the same raunchy humor and R rating. They didn't want 2 characters with the same characteristics in the same franchise. And third, and most importantly, Disney and Fox merged in 2019, and it wanted to revamp the whole X-Men franchise from scratch, leaving Gambit no choice but to be shelved. Gambit's only live-action appearance in the whole franchise was when Taylor Kitsch played the character in the 2009 movie X-Men Origins Wolverine. Venom, Topher Grace's version. Venom was first introduced in Spider-Man 3, with Topher Grace acting as Eddie Brock, ex-photographer for the Daily Bugle and the main antagonist in the final movie of Sam Raimi's trilogy. Seeing the audience's reaction, a spin-off was suggested in 2008 for the character, with Paul Wernick and Rhett Reese penning the script. This was right after Spider-Man 3 was released, so in 2009, the script was complete, portraying the character in a more realistic, darker tone that he deserves. They said that since Heath Ledger's Joker was raking in good money despite being the bad guy, why not give Venom an opportunity in the same direction? He has the potential to be a good anti-hero, being the evil, gooey, sentient mess he is. But casting directors weren't sure about Topher Grace reprising the role because they were not sure if he was ready for a titular role like that. Moreover, Sam Raimi himself signed himself out of the Spider-Man franchise, stating that the studio interfered with his plans too much for it to perform well, and he didn't want to release anything that was less than perfect. Director-producer Gary Ross was asked to rewrite the script for Venom since he was already drafting Spider-Man 4. Sony was planning to reboot the whole Spider-Man franchise with Andrew Garfield, but there was no mention of Grace. In 2014, it was announced that the spin-off would be named Venom Carnage, with Jim Carrey as Cletus Cassidy/Carnage. But Woody Harrelson replaced Carrey at the last moment. Then in 2015, The Amazing Spider-Man 2 performed poorly at the box office, and Sony made a deal with Marvel and let Spider-Man be a part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The Venom spin-off seemed to be cancelled out of the blue when it was announced that it was greenlit and Tom Hardy would be playing the anti-hero and that it would be an R-rated movie. This meant there was going to be a lot of violence and bloodshed happening on screen. It still would have been interesting to see how Grace and Carey would have embodied the roles, but now we'll never know. Gotcha. Fantastic Four 3. I think we can all agree when we say that the Fantastic Four heroes had a fanbase who really wanted to see more of them on the big screen. The success of the Marvel franchise is sky high. So, why could these four heroes not make it to any ranking, such as Iron Man or Captain America? Speaking of Captain America, we all remember the Human Torch, played by Chris Evans, right? The Fantastic Four was released in 2005, and it got quite a bit of fame. Despite being a box office hit with a gross of $333 million worldwide, it faced heavy criticism. Many thought that it's not a storyline that could be turned into a well-made live action. The Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer hit the theaters in 2007, and the critics were a little kinder, but the direction of Tim Story got some disapproval. But the special effects, Silver Surfer, and the action around him were way better than the 2005 one. It's reported that Tim wanted 2 follow-up films. He also wanted to introduce and include Black Panther, Inhumans, and Skrulls in the follow-up films. So, naturally, Chris Evans and Jessica Alba were signed for a 3rd FF film, but the franchise never took it forward. So, why did this happen? Despite the positive responses at the box office, the cost remained the first problem to begin with. The sequel was more successful than the original, and the budget for special effects wouldn't suffice. Not only the 3rd or 4th would put the studio at financial risk, only the work around Silver Surfer would be pretty exorbitant to begin with. On the other hand, Iron Man has gained massive success in comparison to the Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer, so the studio decided to pull back their plans for any new follow-up. The 2015 FF turned out to be a franchise killer despite the studio's best intention to reboot and start afresh. So these can be held as the main 2 reasons for the FF franchise to discontinue the movies. But wait, don't lose all hope. Fantastic Four is now in the safe hands of Marvel. And no matter what Marvel does, they do handle superhero movies pretty well. We'll spoil you with more details about this one in another video. So let's move on to the next movie that didn't see the light of day. Edgar Wright's Ant-Man. With 2 commercially successful movies under its belt and a 3rd one on the way, the Ant-Man film series is an interesting one. Directed by Peyton Reed and starring Paul Rudd, Evangeline Lilly, and Michael Douglas, among others, it was quite a star-studded affair. But this movie was supposed to be directed by Edgar Wright and released in 2014. Edgar Wright's Ant-Man was a highly anticipated Marvel Cinematic Universe film that was ultimately cancelled in 2014 due to creative differences between Wright and Marvel Studios. The project was first announced in 2006, with Wright attached as the director and co-writer. Wright had a unique vision for the film and spent several years developing the script and designing the look and feel of the movie. However, as the film moved closer to production, Marvel Studios began to exert more control over the project and requested changes to the script. Wright and Marvel were unable to agree on the direction of the film, leading to Wright's departure from the project. This cancellation was a disappointment for many fans of Wright's work, as he's known for his innovative and unconventional approach to storytelling. It also represented a significant loss for Marvel, as Wright's departure left the studio without a director for a highly publicized and potentially lucrative film. In the end, Marvel replaced Wright with Peyton Reed as the director, and the film was released in 2015 with generally positive reviews. However, the controversy surrounding Wright's departure and the behind-the-scenes dramas likely contributed to the film's underperformance at the box office compared to other MCU films. Overall, the cancellation of Edgar Wright's Ant-Man was a disappointment for both fans and Marvel Studios, as it represented the loss of a unique vision and a potentially successful film. It serves as a cautionary tale about the challenges of maintaining creative control in the blockbuster movie industry and the importance of finding a balance between artistic vision and commercial considerations. The Sinister Six. The Sinister Six first appeared in The Amazing Spider-Man with Dr. Octopus as the leader of the team. Though over the course of time, many other villains became a part of this wicked anti-Spider-Man group. Let's see who were the other 5 by Dr. Octavius. Electro, Mysterio, Kraven the Hunter, Sandman, and lastly, the Vulture joined the force and continued to go on for 15 iterations over the years. Drew Goddard's Sinister Six was supposed to be a confirmed release after Sony announced 2 spin-offs in 2013. The end credit scene of Amazing Spider-Man 2 has gotten the fans hyped up about the appearance of Sinister Six members. It teased the audience with the arrival of Mysterio, Kraven the Hunter, Vulture, and our all-time favorite Spidey villain, Dr. Octopus. And in this movie, villains such as Rhino and Green Goblin have already got introduced and also became a part of Sinister Six. So, what would the movie be about? Well, all the villainous characters of the Sinister Six would get a redemption story, which will probably not include Spider-Man. However, till the script was completely ready, his absence couldn't get confirmed. The release date of this exciting movie was set to be November 2016, but soon Sony and Marvel had the agreement we know of, and Spider-Man was introduced in MCU. So Sony focused on Venom, which was played by Tom Hardy, and also on films like Morbius. With the universes aligning together, the Sinister Six members, such as Dr. Octopus, Sandman, and Electro, made an appearance in Spider-Man: No Way Home. However, it does raise our curiosity about how their story would continue without the protagonist, the wall-crawling neighborhood superhero. Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings hit theaters in 2021 and instantly gained a massive fan base. Played by Simu Liu, Shang-Chi holds the ability to summon the Ten Rings, which gives him superpowers. The director of the film, Daniel Cretton, had signed for Shang-Chi's sequel as well as a spin-off, which got our hopes high. Though Shang-Chi 2 will never see the light of day, the curious cat within us couldn't wait to explore the potential plot. In the end credit scene of Ten Rings, Shang-Chi and Katie met Wong, Bruce Banner, and Captain Marvel to get to the bottom of the origin of the Golden Rings. The sequel had the potential to be picked up from there, so it would only make sense if Shang-Chi got introduced to other MCU superheroes and was a part of Phase 4. Avengers: Secret Wars is likely to come out in 2026, so it also leaves the door open for an opportunity for Shang-Chi to be a part of Secret Wars. The character could also play an important role in Avengers: The Kang Dynasty, so the sequel would be a good establishment to team up in the big movies. If the sequel happened, would Shang-Chi explore the pocket dimension and the realms of the Chinese god? 10 rings were part of 5 sets of heavenly weapons so that part of Ta Lo could also be discovered. That would be pretty exciting to see when mixed with superhero action. As the 10 rings leaves room to venture through many possibilities, some fans were also expecting the chemistry between Shang-Chi and Katie to flourish. However, all hopes were shattered in pieces when the actor Simu Liu tweeted a mockery against the massive cancellation culture. Right after the word of cancelling Batgirl got out, Disney decided to eliminate all the possibilities of the next Shang-Chi movie as well. Simu Liu has lashed out on Twitter on the same issue, where he confirmed Disney's bold step due to the quality control problems. But to top it off, Warner Brothers also cancelled Supergirl, so this hasn't been the best month for superhero fans.
Goodbye, brother.
Inhumans. Marvel's Inhumans movie was a highly publicized project that was ultimately cancelled in 2018. There were several factors that contributed to the film's cancellation, including changes in the larger Marvel Cinematic Universe, creative differences, and behind-the-scenes problems. One of the main reasons for the cancellation of the Inhumans movie was the shifting priorities of the MCU. The film was originally announced in 2014 as part of the studio's Phase 3 slate of releases. However, as the MCU expanded and the number of projects in development increased, the Inhumans movie was pushed back and eventually removed from the schedule. The problem was that they'd already made the announcements before realizing the modifications that may appear in the future. A lot of changes happened in Phase 3, so it naturally makes sense that Inhumans were also prone to that. Soon, it was even pulled out of Phase 4 and made into a short 8-episode series before being cancelled. Another factor that likely contributed to the cancellation of the film was the creative differences between Marvel Studios and the filmmakers. The project had gone through several writers and directors with no clear vision for the film emerging. It is likely that these creative differences ultimately led to the decision to cancel the project. In addition to these issues, there were also rumored problems behind the scenes. Reports emerged of conflicts between the filmmakers and Marvel Studios, as well as the tension between the creative team and the studio. These problems likely contributed to the overall lack of progress on the film and may have played a role in its cancellation. Ultimately, Marvel's Inhumans movie was a high-profile project that failed to come to fruition. Despite its strong source material and the success of other MCU MCU films. The movie was unable to overcome its numerous issues and was ultimately cancelled. It serves as a cautionary tale about the challenges of adapting complex comics to the big screen and the importance of strong creative vision and collaboration.
Oh, that is cool.
The Silver Surfer. We all remember the Fantastic Four antagonist hovering on his silvery flying board that also saved the Fantastic Four series. The character has gained his abilities from Galactus, who wants to devour planets. He could travel through space and have greater strength to defend himself, thus preparing for the arrival of the Ultimate Master. Silver Surfer's cosmic abilities and appearance make him a real eye-catching character on the screen, and his introduction to live action was actually pretty fruitful. So, when there was a slight opportunity for the character to have his own solo movie, we Fantastic Four fans were pretty thrilled. So, what was it about, and why didn't it get into production? Well, if we go a little back in time, Lee Kramer planned on making a Silver Surfer film that would explore the cosmic universe. Lee was a Xanadu producer who was well dedicated to making this in 1980 with a rock and roll theme and soundtrack. He had a long-term plan to release this in 2001 with the name A Space Odyssey, and with the contemporary rock and roll theme, all it needed was a composer. So, who could be better than the Beatles legend Paul McCartney himself? The best part was that he himself was interested in contributing to this. Kramer then approached Stan Lee to write Silver Surfer's solo story. The portrayal of the concept art was detailed and the character's features were vastly intricated. From the chrome-finished bald body to the classic surfboard, the scale of the movie was astonishing. The silver alien would travel to Earth and go against humanity to serve his master, Galactus. Lee produced the novel for the film with Jack Kirby, which would result in Surfer realizing the goodwill of humanity and deciding against his master. His appearance here was independent, and the Fantastic Four was not involved. The female version of the Surfer was added by Stan Lee because Kramer wanted his then-girlfriend Olivia Newton to be a cast member in the film. Though it didn't get made into a proper film, this rock opera solo of Silver Surfer would probably be a fan favorite because the 2015 reboot of FF has clearly been a disaster. What do you think? Should this creation of Stan Lee come to life? Taskmaster. If you haven't heard of this C-list Marvel antagonist, then you're in for a treat. Daughter of General Dreykov, Antonia Dreykov is the alter ego of Taskmaster. She's capable of copying the fighting methods of others with photographic reflex abilities. When her father was attacked by some assassinating goons, Antonia experienced heavy physical damage. She used a chip to control her body and mind that artificially elevated her strength. Though she is able to replicate the movements and fighting style, she can't gain the powers of her opponents. Earlier, she's mimicked and fought against the Black Widow, Black Panther, Captain America, Hawkeye, and so on. So, a solo movie now sounds better, doesn't it? It was director Joe Carnahan's long-term plan to do a solo Taskmaster movie in 2008. So, what would the plot even be? Though there are no official statements on the same, our best guess is Taskmaster's origin story would have been explored in the film. Speaking of origin stories, not much of Antonia's true identity or personality has come out yet. Her father, Dreykov, sent her to the Red Room, where her personality and mind were altered and repurposed. After the brainwashing, her true nature was forgotten, and she was reshaped into her father's greatest weapon. Moon Knight would also be introduced, which would have been a great kickstart on the project. Yep, Taskmaster and Moon Knight together in one film is worth all the time and investment of producers, but with every passing day, it gets less likely that this potential plot would ever come into existence. Blade 4. Many Marvel fans were expecting a follow-up film after the first 3 Blade movies, but unfortunately, Blade 4 may not ever happen. But almost 18 years have passed since the last Blade movie, and we fans are getting desperate. With the superhuman strength and the ability to heal, Blade is partly vampire and partly human. To refresh your memory, the Blade is immune to sunlight, vampire bites, and even garlic. Directed by Stephen Norrington, Blade first hit theaters in 1998 when Wesley Snipes played the character. The film received positive applause from the critics, so the studio decided to go for Blade 2 in 2002 and Blade Trinity in 2004. Wesley replayed the lead role in all 3 movies, and with the frequent follow-up screen appearances coming in, fans were thrilled about the next one. Blade 4 was previously announced to have a release date of November 3rd, 2023, so naturally, we're expecting some big news at San Diego Comic-Con in July. To everyone's utter distress, it didn't go as planned. It's reported that the production was shut down due to the director Bassam Tariq backing off from the project. Tariq has given his statement on the issue, confirming the same, saying that the Blade project with Marvel has been wonderful, but he'll be stepping back. However, Tariq will be involved as an executive producer. The production of Blade 4 will remain on hold for a while till a worthy filmmaker is able to pick up from where Tariq has left it. There is still a risk of this getting cancelled altogether, but a delay is another possibility. Reportedly, the release date is now September the 6th, 2024. Marvel's effort to find a new director continues, and they surely are looking for someone who understands the depth of character. Fans have been patiently waiting for 20 years, so some slight delay isn't something they're afraid of. The studio may have aimed at early 2023 to resume production, but we can only hope for the best. Silver and Black. Marvel's Silver and Black was a highly anticipated superhero film that was set to be released in 2018. However, it ultimately ended up being cancelled. There are a few reasons why this film was unable to make it to the big screen. One reason why Silver and Black was cancelled is because of creative differences between the director Gina Bythewood and the studio. According to Bythewood, she wanted to make a character-driven film that focused on the relationship between Silver Sable and Black Cat, two popular characters from the Spider-Man universe. She intended it to be a buddy comedy, where two characters who hated each other had to tolerate the other's company to complete a mission. However, the studio was more interested in making a more action-packed film that would appeal to a wider audience. This disagreement over the direction of the film ultimately led to Bythewood leaving the project. Another reason why Silver and Black was cancelled is because of the changing landscape of the superhero film industry. In 2018, the Marvel Cinematic Universe was in the midst of its Phase 3, which included several highly successful films like Avengers: Infinity War and Black Panther. With so many successful films already in the works, it's possible that the studio simply didn't have the resources or the desire to invest in another superhero film. In addition, Silver and Black faced competition from other superhero films that were being released at the same time. For example, 2018 saw the release of Deadpool 2 and Ant-Man and the Wasp, both of which were well received by audiences and critics. With so many superhero films vying for attention, it's possible that Silver and Black simply didn't stand out enough to justify its production costs. Ultimately, several factors contributed to the cancellation of Silver and Black. Creative differences between the director and the studio, the crowded market for superhero films, and the changing landscape of the industry all played a role in the film's demise. While it's certainly disappointing that we won't be able to see Silver Sable and Black Cat on the big screen, there are still plenty of other exciting superhero films on the horizon to look forward to. Werewolf by Night. Marvel's Werewolf by Night was a horror-themed comic book series that was published by Marvel Comics in the 1970s. The series follows the story of Jack Russell, a young man who inherited the curse of lycanthropy and was transformed into a werewolf. Despite its popularity with readers, the series was ultimately cancelled after a relatively short run. One reason for the cancellation of Werewolf by Night could be that it was simply not selling well enough. Like any other business, comic book publishers rely on sales to stay afloat. If a series isn't selling enough copies, it becomes financially unsustainable for the publisher to continue producing it. This could have been the case with Werewolf by Night, as the series wasn't one of Marvel's most popular or well-known titles. Another possible reason for the cancellation of Werewolf by Night could be that it was too niche for a mainstream audience. While the series had a dedicated fan base, it may have been too specific in its themes and content to appeal to a wider audience. This can make it difficult for a series to sustain itself over a long period of time, as it relies on a limited pool of readers to support it. A third reason for the cancellation of Werewolf by Night could be that it was simply a victim of the shifting interests of readers and the industry as a whole. Comic book publishing, like any other form of entertainment, is subject to trends and fashions. What is popular one year may not be the next, and publishers must constantly adapt to the changing tastes of their audience. It's possible that Werewolf by Night was simply caught in the crosshairs of these shifting trends and was unable to sustain itself in the long run. There may have been other factors that contributed to the cancellation of Werewolf by Night as well. It is worth noting, however, that despite its early demise, the series has continued to enjoy a dedicated fan base and has been the subject of several reprints and revivals over the years. While it may not have had the longest run, Werewolf by Night remains an important and influential part of Marvel's history and has left a lasting impact on the world of horror comics. Guardians of the Galaxy spin-off movie. With the Volume 3 of Guardians of the Galaxy coming in during 2023 and I Am Groot in production, it's safe to say that James Gunn is on a roll. The Volume 2 end credits have introduced us to characters such as Stakar Ogord, Charlie-27, Martin X, Mainframe, and Alita Ogord. They'll be played by Sylvester Stallone, Ving Rhames, Michael Rosenbaum, Miley Cyrus, and Michelle Yeoh. James Gunn has recently disclosed that during the time he visited the Ravager's ship during Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1, he had let Kevin Feige know about the potential Ravager show. And Feige, the president of the Marvel Studios, gave Gunn a word that if Volume 1 is a success, Ravagers could be a possibility. Not just a success, it was one of the highest grossing movies made, and yet no official Ravagers news is to be found. James has also confirmed that he did have a potential idea that's been pitched to the studio, but we're still in the dark about any updates. So, it's only safe to assume that Ravagers will no longer be hitting the big screen. On the other hand, the I Am Groot is getting quite the hype with its adorable trailer, and well, that's enough to keep the fans distracted from the other spin-off that won't see the light of day. Other cancelled X-Men movies. Everyone knows the X-Men franchise and the effect it had on our dreams to become a mutant who had superhuman powers. But there are many movies that were shelved by Marvel Studios which have been put on indefinite hold or been cancelled altogether. Let's look into some of them and why they might never see the light of a theatre screen. Multiple Man. Multiple Man, also known as Jamie Madrox, is a mutant superhero in the Marvel Comics universe. It was created by writer Len Wein and artist John Byrne. The character first appeared in 1975 and has the ability to create duplicates of himself, each of which has its own consciousness and abilities. Multiple Man has been a member of various superhero teams over the years, including the X-Men and X-Factor. There was a project that was announced in 2018 and was set to be directed by Simon Kinberg, who had previously directed and written several X-Men films. The film was set to focus on Multiple Man as the main character and was set to be a standalone film within the X-Men film franchise. James Franco was attached to star as Multiple Man. The movie hasn't yet been made and it's not clear if it's still in development. X-Force. This movie was announced in 2013 as a spin-off of the X-Men franchise, focusing on the X-Force team. Drew Goddard was set to write and direct, and the movie was eventually released in 2018. One of the most well-known attempts to make a movie out of it was a project that was announced in 2013 and was set to be directed by Jeff Wadlow. The film was set to feature a lineup of characters that included Cable, Cannonball, Domino, and Warpath, and was set to be a spin-off of the X-Men film franchise. In 2020, it was announced that Disney and Marvel Studios were developing a new X-Force film as part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. However, as of 2022, there have been no further updates on the project and it's unclear when or if it will move forward. Kitty Pryde. Kitty Pryde, also known as Shadowcat, is a mutant superhero in the Marvel Comics universe. She was created by writer Chris Claremont and artist John Byrne and made her first appearance in 1980. Over the years, Kitty has been a prominent member of the X-Men and has been featured on several different media platforms such as comic books, video games, and television shows. There have been several attempts to adapt Kitty Pryde into a feature film over the years. One of the most well-known of these was a project that was announced in 2017 and was set to be directed by Tim Miller, who had previously directed the film Deadpool. The film was set to focus on Kitty Pryde as the main character and was set to be a standalone film within the X-Men film franchise, but it was never made, and as of 2022, there have been no updates. Laura Kinney, also known as X-23, is a mutant character in the Marvel Comics universe, who was created by writer Craig Kyle and artist Chris Yost. The character made her first appearance in 2004 and is a clone of the character Wolverine, whose real name is Logan. Like Logan, Laura possesses retractable bone claws and a regenerative healing factor, and has been a member of various superhero teams over the years, including the X-Men. There was a project that was announced in 2017 and was set to be directed by James Mangold, who had previously directed the film Logan, which featured Logan and Laura as the main characters. The film was set to be a standalone film within the X-Men film franchise, but for unknown reasons, it never went past the stage of being discussed, and it's unclear if it'll ever be made. Adult animated Deadpool series. Who is the coolest superhero of Marvel, if not the one with explicit dark humor and a pony? Deadpool movies are R-rated and have grossed $260 million worldwide, which is a huge success for the production. The character has gained massive popularity due to the actor Ryan Reynolds' added elements of quirk. So naturally, the adult animated version also got our hopes high. This unnamed animated Deadpool series was supposed to be produced in collaboration with Marvel TV, FX Production, and ABC Signature Studios. But since the characters of Deadpool are owned by Fox, it was unclear who would be going forward with the end project. So, why did this get cancelled? The comedy-focused action series was written by Stephen Glover and was likely to be a 10-episode series. Donald Glover has been accused of leaking the pilot script online. Could this be a reason for conflict? Some were expecting Marvel to continue with the project without the Glover brothers, but after all, it would be hard to pick up from where they left off. Donald Glover has confirmed the elimination of the project with a statement saying that the creative differences have forced the brothers, FX, and Marvel Television to part ways from the project. It is likely that FX has favored the brothers and pulled out from the animated series. Being a strong character, the series had a lot more potential if the creators were patient enough. So, when FX CEO John Landgraf broke the news of the show's demise, it obviously bumped out many Marvel fans. Landgraf also added that the decisions around IP are strictly controlled by Marvel, and it was their choice not to continue with the Glover brothers' version of the storyline. Landgraf was seen favoring both the Glovers, and clearly, the mismatch between the big shots has gotten pretty complex, and therefore resulted in the complete elimination of what would have been a masterpiece. Power Pack. Marvel's Power Pack was a popular comic book series that was published by Marvel Comics in the 1980s and 90s. The series followed the adventures of 4 young siblings who gained superpowers and worked together as a team to protect the world. Despite its popularity with readers, a Power Pack movie has never been produced. There are several reasons why this may have happened. One reason for the absence of a Power Pack movie could be that the character and story don't have a wide enough appeal to justify the production costs of a feature film. While the comic book series may have had a dedicated fan base, it's possible that the characters and story may not have resonated with a wider audience. This can make it difficult to justify the investment of time and resources into a film adaptation. Another possible reason for the lack of a Power Pack movie could be that the characters and story haven't been a priority for Marvel Studios. The company has a vast library of characters and properties at its disposal, and it must make strategic decisions about which ones to adapt for film. It is possible that Power Pack simply hasn't been a priority for the studio, or that it hasn't fit into the larger plans and vision for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It's also worth considering the possibility that a Power Pack movie may have been in development at some point but was ultimately cancelled for various reasons. This could have been due to changes in the film industry, or the studio's focus, creative differences, or any number of other factors. Without more information, it is difficult to speculate on the specific reasons for a hypothetical cancelled adaptation. While Power Pack was a famous and beloved comic book series, a movie adaptation has never been produced. There are several reasons why this may have happened, including limited appeal, lack of priority for the studio, or other creative or industry-related factors. It might have an interesting premise because it bears a resemblance to Spy Kids, and since Kevin Feige is still interested in putting this movie out, we still have a chance of watching this in the theaters.
Integrity 1%.
Fury. Is it even an Avengers movie if Samuel L. Jackson isn't making an appearance with an eye patch as Nick Fury? Since the summer of 2022, a rumor of this S.H.I.E.L.D. leader's solo movie has been going around the Marvel fanbase. Out of the plenty of unconfirmed rumors about were in talks about the now discarded Nick Fury S.H.I.E.L.D. spin-off movie, it was proposed the plot would be creased into Captain America 2. However, the idea was eventually shelved and the spin-off was moved to the television network. On the other hand, Samuel L. Jackson has made his remarks regarding the character not needing a solo movie as of now. Well, we fans beg to differ, because imagine an unlimited, thrilling, action-packed film with Fury. Though it might be a little too late now, as no official announcements have been made yet.
I've turned your arc reactor into an electromagnet.
Nighthawk. Nighthawk is a character in the Marvel Comics universe who was created by writer Roy Thomas and artist John Romita Sr. and made his first appearance in 1971. The character has gone through several different iterations over the years and has been featured on many media platforms, including comic books, video games, and television shows. Nighthawk is a superhero who has the ability to fly and is skilled in hand-to-hand combat. He's been a member of several superhero teams over the years, including the Defenders and the Squadron Supreme, and has often been portrayed as a socially conscious and politically active hero. There have been several different versions of Nighthawk over the years, with different characters taking on the mantle in different storylines. The most well-known of these is Kyle Richmond, a billionaire who inherited his wealth from his father and used it to fund his superhero activities as Nighthawk. Other characters who have taken on the mantle of Nighthawk include Golden Eagle, who was a member of the Squadron Supreme, and Jacob Whitmore, a member of the Initiative. A standalone movie was supposedly under discussion, which featured Nighthawk as the protagonist and told his side of the story. There are many arcs that can be explored, such as how his personality originated, how did he get the powers from Grandmaster, and mainly how he started off as a villain but had his redemption arc and assisted the Defenders and the Squadron Supreme. But it never made it past the stage of being discussed in the boardroom, and it's unclear if it ever was in development. Wesley Snipes' Black Panther. This might be surprising to hear, but the Blade actor had his own vision for the Black Panther character in the 90s. But Marvel's Black Panther comics had advanced features and action scenes that wouldn't be possible to bring to live action just then due to several disadvantages. But Marvel wasn't as advanced as it is today, and the CGI technologies didn't improvise much. On the other hand, Wesley was at the peak of his career. With films such as Jungle Fever, New Jack City, and White Men Can't Jump, Marvel didn't want to let go of this star. So Marvel starred him in a more doable project, which was Blade. It instantly gained popularity and resulted in being Marvel's first successful movie, with $131 million worldwide. Wesley Snipes has also revealed that the lack of a director and script played a part and is one of the reasons why the Black Panther project ended up not moving forward. David Hayter's Black Widow. David Hayter wanted to make a Black Widow origin story named after the character long before Marvel even attempted the same. The famous writer was involved in the project as a director and script writer and was working in association with Lionsgate Films in early 2004. The character's rights were soon completely gone to Marvel Studios in 2006, which resulted in the complete elimination of the project. Elektra, Ultraviolet, Blood Rain, and Lara Croft Tomb Raider were some of the female-centric movies of the era that didn't do that well at the box office. This was also one of the reasons why Marvel didn't want to pursue the origin story of Natasha Romanoff. Scarlet has given Black Widow much more popularity, and it's quite the irony how Marvel has gained huge box office hits out of the character in the present time. Hayter has expressed his admiration for Natasha and spent over a year writing the script. He's revealed that the storyline would follow Natasha finishing her spy training and returning back to her homeland. Nope, that isn't all. The fall of the lawless Soviet Empire, along with loose nuclear missiles, would add to the thrilling elements of the story. When Natasha Romanoff was introduced in Iron Man 2, Hayter had hopes for his script. Unfortunately, that will not be the case, and David Hayter's Black Widow will remain under the shadow. Guillermo del Toro and Neil Gaiman's Doctor Strange. In 2007, Neil Gaiman and Guillermo del Toro announced that they were developing a Doctor Strange movie for Marvel Studios. Gaiman, who is a well-known author and comic book writer, was set to write the script, while del Toro, a critically acclaimed director, was set to direct. However, the project was ultimately not approved by Marvel and never came to fruition. In 2016, a new version of Doctor Strange was released, directed by Scott Derrickson and starring Benedict Cumberbatch as the titular character. This version of the film was a success and launched a franchise within the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It's not uncommon for film projects to go through development and not come to fruition, with various factors contributing to their ultimate cancellation or delay. It's not clear why the Gaiman and del Toro version of the film was not approved, but it is possible that the studio wanted to take the character in a different direction or had other creative differences with the filmmakers. Gaiman had stated that he wanted Stephen Strange to be an alcoholic and a disbarred surgeon who went through an accident that changed his life. But all of this happened in the 1920s. It is an interesting thought to have him master his mystic arts in Greenwich and not age since then, making him over 90 years old. Definitely, the character would be out of place in the modern world, providing quite the comedic relief while he adjusts to the technology. Even though their Doctor Strange movie wasn't made, both Gaiman and del Toro have had successful careers in the entertainment industry. Gaiman has continued to write novels, comics, and screenplays, and has recently written the widely acclaimed The Sandman, while del Toro has directed a number of critically acclaimed films, including Pan's Labyrinth and The Shape of Water. So that, friends, was the list of every cancelled Marvel movie that didn't get made. Tell us your top 3 picks that you would have enjoyed seeing on the big screen. Perhaps adult animated Deadpool or another amazing Spider-Man by Andrew Garfield. Let us know in the comments, and we'll see you in the next one. Till then, toodaloo! And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone.